Blessings, family. Elijah. What's up, son? Good morning, top of the day. You on your way to work? Son, that was a question for you. Hold on. Squeaky chill. On the way now? Okay, cool. Pay attention to the road. Shayla, great rise and Levon, blessings. All right, beautiful people. Happy Friday. And we got one more day before we get into these Sumerian texts. Shalom, Auntie. Y'all, it is Friday, January the 28th, 2022. Day number 16 of year 4. Reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, we are on day 1034. That's how many days we have been present consecutively over the last 4 years. Remember, that doesn't include the Sabbath days or the feast day Sabbath days added into the count. Neither does it account for that week that I had to go on hiatus. Okay. Big Will Warrior, UK in the house, Grand Rising. Audrey, shalom. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and start with this Shema, which is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. All right, y'all. A call for wholehearted commitment. These are the commands, decrees, and regulations that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you. You must obey them in the land you are about to enter and occupy, and you and your children and grandchildren must fear the Lord your God as long as you live. If you obey all his decrees and commands, you will enjoy a long life. Listen closely, Israel, and be careful to obey. Then all will go well with you, and you will have many children in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Listen, O Israel. The Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home, when you're on the road, when you're going to bed, and when you're getting up. Tie them on your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. The Lord your God will soon bring you into the land he swore to give to you when he made a vow to your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a land with large, prosperous cities that you did not build. The houses will be richly stocked with goods you did not produce. You will draw water from cisterns you did not dig, and you will eat from vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. When you have eaten your fill in this land, be careful not to forget the Lord who rescued you from slavery in the land of Egypt. You must fear the Lord your God and serve him. When you take an oath, you must only use his name. You must not worship any of the gods of the neighboring nations, for the Lord your God who lives among you is a jealous God. His anger will flare up against you, and he will wipe you from the face of the earth. You must not test the Lord your God as you did when you complained at Massa. You must diligently obey the commands of the Lord your God, all the laws and decrees he has given you. Do what is right and good in the Lord's sight, so all will go well with you. Then you will enter and occupy the good land that the Lord swore to give to your ancestors. You will drive out all the enemies living in the land, just as the Lord said you would. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these laws, decrees, and regulations that the Lord our God has commanded us to obey? Then you must tell them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with his strong hand. The Lord did miraculous signs and wonders before our eyes, dealing terrifying blows against Egypt and Pharaoh and all his people. He brought us out of Egypt so he could give us this land he had sworn to give to our ancestors. And the Lord our God commanded us to obey all these decrees and to fear him so that he can continue to bless us and preserve our lives as he has done to this day. For we will be counted as righteous when we obey all the commands the Lord our God has given us. All right, beautiful people. Enjoy. Shalom, shalom. Ki Mutu Kiku, you star 87. Salama. Mom, shalom, shalom. All right, y'all. Genesis 46. All right, y'all. Did y'all go back and read? Well, most of y'all done probably read it, but the fight between Jacob and his brethren yesterday. I posted the link for y'all, and also some of that stuff about Bobby Hemmit. If you haven't looked at some of that stuff by Bobby Hemmit, go to the community section or go back to the video from yesterday and look in the comment section. I got it pinned in the comment section on this channel, the backup channel. It's in a community section on this channel, and the Facebook. I made a separate post about it with the pinned videos in the comment section, and also it's in the comment section on yesterday's Facebook video. I put it everywhere just to make sure everybody at least had a chance to go check it out. Okay. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the coming days. Okay. Genesis chapter 46, Jacob's journey to Egypt. So Jacob set out for Egypt with all his possessions, and when he came to Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. During the night, God spoke to him in a vision. Jacob, Jacob, he called. Here I am, Jacob replied. I am God, the God of your father, the voice said. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make your family into a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will bring you back again. You will die in Egypt, but Joseph will be with you to close your eyes. So Jacob left Beersheba, and his sons took him to Egypt. They carried him and their little ones and their wives in the wagons Pharaoh had provided for them. They also took all their livestock and all the personal belongings they had acquired in the land of Canaan. So Jacob and his entire family went to Egypt, sons and grandsons, daughters and granddaughters, all of his descendants. These are the names of the descendants of Israel, the sons of Jacob who went to Egypt. Reuben was Jacob's oldest son. The sons of Reuben were Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon were Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul. Shaul's mother was a Canaanite woman. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah were Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah, though and Onan had died in the land of Canaan. The sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The sons of Issachar were Tola, Pua, Jashhub, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun were Sered, Elon, and Jalil. The sons of Leah and Jacob, who were born in Padan Aram, in addition to their daughter Dinah. The number of Jacob's descendants, male and female, through Leah was 33. How many of y'all ever paid attention to that part? The sons of Gad were Zephon, Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Erodai, and Arli. I think that's how you pronounce that. The sons of Asher were Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, and Bariah. Their sister was Sarah. I'm going to screw some of these names up probably. Forgive me ahead of time. Bariah's sons were Heber and Malkiel. These were the sons of Zilpah, the servant given to Leah by her father Laban. The number of Jacob's descendants through Zilpah was 16. The sons of Jacob's wife Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. Joseph's sons, born in the land of Egypt, were Manasseh and Ephraim. Their mother was Asenath, daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On. Benjamin's sons were Bela, Berker, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppin, Huppin, and Ard. Who named their children Muppin and Huppin? These were the sons of Rachel and Jacob. The number of Jacob's descendants through Rachel was 14. The son of Dan was Husham. The sons of Naphtali were Jazil, Guni, Jezer, and Shalim. These were the sons of Bilhah, the servant given to Rachel by her father Laban. The number of Jacob's descendants through Bilhah was 7. The total number of Jacob's direct descendants who went with him to Egypt, not counting his sons' wives, was 66. In addition, Joseph had 2 sons who were born in Egypt. So altogether, there were 70 members of Jacob's family in the land of Egypt. Jacob's family arrives in Goshen. As they neared their destination, Jacob sent Judah ahead to meet Joseph and get directions to the region of Goshen. And when they finally arrived there, Joseph prepared his chariot and traveled to Goshen to meet his father. Joseph prepared his chariot and traveled to Goshen to meet his father Jacob. When Joseph arrived, he embraced his father and wept, holding him for a long time. Finally, Jacob said to Joseph, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen your face again and know you are still alive." And Joseph said to his brothers and to his entire family, "I will go to Pharaoh and tell him, 'My brothers and my father's entire family have come to me from the land of Canaan. These men are shepherds, and they raise livestock. They have brought with them their flocks and herds and everything they own.'" Then he said, "When Pharaoh calls for you and asks you about your occupation, you must tell him, 'We, your servants, have raised livestock all our lives, as our ancestors have always done.' When you tell him this, he will let you live here in the region of Goshen, for the Egyptians despise shepherds." Nikki, good day, good day. Auntie, hey girl, hey. Yahuwah is one. O great spirit of Yah, fill us and guide us. Yes and amen. Genesis chapter 47. Jacob blesses Pharaoh. Then Joseph went to see Pharaoh and told him, "My father and brothers have arrived from the land of Canaan. They have come with all their flocks and herds and possessions, and they are now in the region of Goshen." Joseph took 5 of his brothers with him and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh asked the brothers, "What is your occupation?" They replied, "We, your servants, are shepherds like our ancestors. We have come to live here in Egypt for a while, for there is no pasture for our flocks in Canaan. The famine is very severe there, so please, we request permission to live in the region of Goshen." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Now that your father and brothers have joined you here, choose any place in the entire land of Egypt for them to live. Give them the best land of Egypt. Let them live in the region of Goshen. And if any of them have special skills, put them in charge of my livestock too." Then Joseph brought in his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. "How old are you?" Pharaoh asked. Jacob replied, "I have traveled this earth for 130 hard years, but my life has been short compared to the lives of my ancestors." Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh again before leaving his court. So Joseph assigned the best land of Egypt, the region of Ramses, to his father and his brothers, and he let them settle there, just as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided food for his father and his brothers in amounts appropriate to the number of their dependents, including the smallest children. Joseph's leadership in the famine. Meanwhile, the famine became so severe that all the food was used up, and people were starving throughout the lands of Egypt and Canaan. By selling grain to the people, Joseph eventually collected all the money in Egypt and Canaan, and he put the money into Pharaoh's treasury. When the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of money, all the Egyptians came to Joseph. "Our money is gone," they cried, "but please give us food or we will die before your very eyes." Joseph replied, "Since your money is gone, bring me your livestock." Remember, they had livestock, right? They weren't eating their livestock. They're telling him, we ran out of food. Give us food. You got all our money. Okay, since I got all your money, then bring me all your livestock. Then I give you food. Kimberly, hey girl, hey, shalom, shalom. Joseph replied, "Since your money is gone, bring me your livestock. I will give you food in exchange for your livestock." So they brought their livestock to Joseph in exchange for food. In exchange for their horses, flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle and donkeys, Joseph provided them with food for another year. So mind you, some people say, well, they may have traded the horses and the camels, which we know are unclean. Nope, they also traded the sheep and the goats and the cattle. The cows, they weren't eating steak. They weren't eating beef. They weren't eating lamb. They weren't eating none of the clean meats. They weren't eating it. They sold it all to get food, what they counted as food. I'm just saying, sometimes we just kind of gloss over little small things that gives us hints to bigger things that will help us live life and life more abundantly. I'm just saying. But that year ended, and the next year they came again and said, "We cannot hide the truth from you, my lord. Our money is gone, and all of our livestock and cattle are yours. We have nothing left to give you but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your very eyes? Buy us and our land, in exchange for food. We offer our land and ourselves as slaves for Pharaoh. Just give us grain so that we may live and not die, and so the land does not become empty and desolate. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. All the Egyptians sold him their fields because the famine was so severe, and soon all the land belonged to Pharaoh. As for the people, he made them all slaves, from one end of Egypt to the other. The only land he did not buy was the land belonging to the priests. They received an allotment of food directly from Pharaoh, so they didn't need to sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "Look, today I have bought you and your land for Pharaoh. I will provide you with seed so you can plant the fields. Then you will harvest it. 1/5 of your crop will belong to Pharaoh. You may keep the remaining 4/5 as seed for your fields and as food for you, your households, and your little ones." "You have saved our lives," they exclaimed. "May it please you, my lord, to let us be Pharaoh's servants." Joseph then issued a decree, still in effect in the land of Egypt, that Pharaoh should receive 1/5 of all the crops grown on his land. Only the beginning, belonging to the priests, was not given to Pharaoh. Meanwhile, the people of Israel settled in the region of Goshen in Egypt. There they acquired property, and they were fruitful, and their population grew rapidly. Jacob lived for 17 years after his arrival in Egypt, so he lived 147 years in all. As the time of his death drew near, Jacob called his sons As the time of death grew near, Jacob called for his son Joseph and said to him, "Please do me this favor. Put your hand under my thigh and swear to me that you will treat me with unfailing love by honoring this last request. Do not bury me in Egypt. When I die, please take my body out of Egypt and bury me with my ancestors." So Joseph promised, "I will do as you ask." "Swear that you would do it," Jacob insisted. So Joseph gave his oath, and Jacob bowed humbly at the head of his bed. Last chapter for the day, Genesis chapter 48. Trina, hey girl, hey. One day, not long after this, word came to Joseph, "Your father is failing rapidly." So Joseph went to visit his father, and he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Joseph arrived, Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to see you." So Jacob gathered his strength and sat up in his bed. Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. He said to me, 'I will make you fruitful, and I will multiply your descendants. I will make you a multitude of nations, and I will give this land of Canaan to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession.' Now I am claiming as my own sons these 2 boys of yours, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born here in the land of Egypt before I arrived. They will be my sons, just as Reuben and Simeon are. But any children born to you in the future will be your own, and they will inherit the land within the territories of their brothers, Ephraim and Manasseh. Long ago, as I was returning from Padan Aram, Rachel died in the land of Canaan. We were still on the way, some distance from Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. So with great sorrow I buried her there beside the road to Ephrath. Then Jacob looked over at the 2 boys. "Are these your sons?" he asked. "Yes," Joseph told him. "These are the sons God has given me here in Egypt." And Jacob said, "Bring them closer to me so I can bless them." Jacob was half blind because of his age and could hardly see. So Joseph brought the boys close to him, and Jacob kissed and embraced them. Then Jacob said to Joseph, "I never thought I would see your face again, but now God has let me see your children too." Joseph moved the boys, who were at their grandfather's knees, and he bowed with his face to the ground. Then he positioned the boys in front of Jacob. With his right hand, he directed Ephraim towards Jacob's left hand, and with his left hand, he put Manasseh at Jacob's right hand. But Jacob crossed his arms as he reached out to lay his hands on the boy's head. He put his right hand on the head of Ephraim, though he was the younger boy, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, though he was the firstborn. Then he blessed Joseph and said, "May the God before whom my grandfather Abraham and my father Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this very day, The angel who has redeemed me from all harm, may he bless these boys. May they preserve my name and the names of Abraham and Isaac. May their descendants multiply greatly throughout the earth. But Joseph was upset when he saw that his father placed his right hand on Ephraim's head. So Joseph lifted it and moved it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. No, my father, he said, this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused. I know, my son, I know, he replied. Manasseh will also become a great people, but his younger brother will become even greater, and his descendants will become a multitude of nations. So Jacob blessed the boys that day with this blessing. The people of Israel will use your names when they give a blessing. They will say, may God make you as prosperous as Ephraim and Manasseh. In this way, Jacob put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh. Then Jacob said to Joseph, look, I'm about to die, but God will be with you and take you back to Canaan, the land of your ancestors. And beyond what I have given your brothers, I am giving you an extra portion of the land that I took from the Amorites with my sword and bow. And that, my beautiful people, is our reading from today. That was Genesis 46 through 48. All right. Tiffany said, have you read anything anywhere to provide more detail as to why Jacob adopted Joseph's sons? Well, it did mention in a previous chapter. I haven't read anything specifically, but I used to always wonder about that, especially like when you get down like into the New Testament, when you read Revelation and it adds them in there. When you're looking at the it adds the whole section about the 144,000, right? The different tribes, it removes Dan and it puts Manasseh. Yeah, I think it's Manasseh, not Ephraim, but Manasseh. But it's a representation of Jacob. Jacob wasn't put in there, but his sons were. But it still represented Jacob as one of the sons. I mean, not Jacob, Joseph. I keep getting the names mixed up. It represented Joseph as one of the sons of Jacob by using his son in that lineup. But in the chapter we read, in chapter 47, it said that, he adopted his sons as his own. I don't know. I kind of look at it kind of like what we do today. Like, even like with nephews that we have. I know they're my nephews, but I also call them my sons, even though one of them, one just kind of comes back and forth. One of them actually stayed with us, but while he was here, he was our nephew, but we called him our son, so we introduced him as our son most of the time, right? I don't know. I just kind of thought of it like that, but I don't have any like deeper details of why, Jacob did it, to be honest. I just kind of looked at it that way. So, but if you have some information that I don't, let a sister know, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, as far as I know, up to this point, I haven't seen anything. Not that there's not, I just haven't come across it yet. All right, y'all. My big toe. We start section 2 today. Mysticism demystified, the foundations of reality. Alicia, yeah. Shalom, sister. Okay, chapter 17, introduction to section 2. What we call mystical is relative to the extent of our knowledge and understanding. I'll read that again, right? Because a lot of time we call stuff witchcraft and of the devil when we don't understand, especially when you fresh out the doors of the church house. What we call mystical is relative to the extent of our knowledge and understanding. Salama. If some process, phenomenon, or conceptualization appears to lie beyond our potential ability to explain it within the context of physical matter reality, we describe it as mystical, right? Much of what was considered mystical 1,000 years ago is considered science today, and much of what is considered mystical today will be clearly understood by a future science. Blessed and healthy, Siami. As our current accumulated objective knowledge reaches its limits and begins to dissolve into the seemingly unknowable, what lies beyond our presumed theoretical reach is defined as mystical. And if you've been in the YouTube world long enough, especially within and without some of the channels of Hebrews or even conscious Christian people, if you want to call them that, if there is such a thing, right? Those who are waking up to the truth, and they're coming across material that their previous faction would frown upon, i.e. the previous faction, the church. They would frown upon and say, nope, don't even get into that. That's witchcraft. All of them returning to ancestral worship. And I was cautious. I heard all of those things. Don't get into ancestral worship. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean ancestral worship? But the more I kept moving, I realized what they were talking about and what they were not talking about and what they thought they were talking about, right? There's a clear line between all of that. And what they don't understand, they just blame it all on the devil. It's spooky, don't mess with it. It's witchcraft. And they've been taught to do that. Even natural things that were a part of our culture, right? They call it witchcraft. Like, or anything that got to do with herbs, like all of us that's returning to gardening and stuff. There are books out there that are called things like the Green Witch and stuff like that. Even the word witch just throws people off. But the book, I looked into it after carefully reading the backside and the inside cover just to make sure I really wasn't getting anything with Satan worship and stuff. I was like, oh, they're talking about herbalists, but they just happen to call it the Green Witch. So some people will never pick up stuff if it has certain terms on it. I call those gatekeepers or doorkeepers or the boogeyman to keep those people who aren't really ready for it away, right? Just come back later and open the cover, silly, right? You know, so after I got past that point, I was like, oh, they ain't talking about witchery stuff at all. They just talking about gardening and understanding how herbs and fruits and veggies operate, how they heal the body. Sometimes they call it alchemy, depending on what author you're reading. But the term witchcraft came into play big time during the time of like the Salem witch trials. And they weren't really witches like what we would see and think of as witches like we're taught in the church and we see movies with witches and warlocks. They weren't really witches like that. They were witches in the fact that they understood how herbs work and they weren't taking crap from massa. You want me to fix you something to eat, massa? What you want? Okay, we're going to take a little bit of this herb because it's going to kill you slow, but it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you fast, but it's going to kill you slow, right? So that's what they call. Did you mention? Oh, yeah, girl, you mentioned the word sage. Christians lose their mind. They doing whole sermons. I'm like, this is freaking ridiculous. Don't you put sage in your food? You tenderize your meat with sage, and now all of a sudden, because you want to burn the incense, sage, now it's of the devil. My G, well, first of all, if you were a green witch, well, if you were knowledgeable of the herbs, you would know that sage is a natural air freshener. It's a natural air freshener. You don't even have to burn it for real. Like if you get into it and you really start looking into herbs, sage is a natural air freshener, right? But you got some people that's you want to call them overly spiritual, whatever. They'll burn it and they'll take it and they'll take it through the house and stuff like that because it's a natural air freshener. Some people do it. They sage themselves, bless up, put the sage all over their body, however you want to do it. I mean, it still works, but the first time I did it, I was like, I like the smell. I like sage anyway. I use sage in cooking anyway, but to me, when I first started using it, it kind of reminded me of the smell of marijuana. So Jeremiah come busting out the room when I lit it, banging on the door. I'm like, first of all, you better quit banging on our door like that. Y'all now smoking weed? No, Jeremiah, we not smoking weed this time. No. No. I'm joking. We don't smoke it. When we did, we didn't smoke in the house, but it was sage. He was like, what is that? I'm like, boy, hold on. I open up the door. He's like, oh, what's that? I said, this is sage. You're not explaining to him. He's like, oh, well, let me get some of that in my room when y'all done. Smell like weed. I was like, well, it's not. And how you know what weed smell like anyway? And he walks out the room. I'm like, boy, I tell you, teenagers. But I know, play too much. Kurt, shalom. So, but yeah, it's just different things. Even doing like the Salem witch trials, they would literally burn people at the stake, calling them witches when they were no more than herbalists and master herbalists, right? They knew how to use the herbs to heal the body. Some of them used it for the effect, just as a recreational drug or whatever, for the high effect that it gave them. Not that I recommend that you do that, right? I don't necessarily recommend that you take fire into your chest. I really don't. But there are some times, I'm gonna be honest, where sometimes depending on what's going on with you, right? Like if you have like major pain issues going on in your body and you don't have the form of the marijuana where the THC property has been removed from it, that's the part that gets you high, that gets you high. If you don't have it to where that portion is removed from it, to where you can just ingest the medicine from it, then I would recommend that you take a few puffs. I ain't say just, all day. Just take a couple puffs and it'll help alleviate some of that pain. I talked to my daddy one time before he passed away, because sometimes he was in pain. I talked to my sister, she a nurse. I'm like, look, why don't we just tell him to smoke some weed? She started laughing. I was like, well, it's going to help. She said, well, yeah, it would, but like, first of all, where we going to get weed from? We need to call our other sister. But we didn't. Well, at least, I don't know if he ever did or if my other sister finally came over and gave him some or whatever. But sometime I would recommend. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, neither am I giving you information or medical advice. You need to go seek, this disclaimer, what they say, you need to go seek the advice of a certified physician, doctor. What I'm saying should not be taken as medical advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Y'all won't hear me up. Look, but because they knew how to use the herbs, right? And they would use them against them, they just wanted to outlaw it altogether, right? Altogether. They call them a witch. If we find out you're doing witchy stuff, we're going to burn you, right? So which is a way that they were actually able to cut a lot of wisdom off from the coming generations, because the current generation at that time, well, maybe I say their children, they spooked good enough to calm the voices of the teaching parents, so the parents would not pass along information. Most of the parents, they wouldn't pass their information along to their children for fear that if they knew it, it would bring harm to them and they would be killed. So they stopped telling them, right? So, but some of them, they still, listen here, keep this on the low. I'm going to tell you how to do this. The master come in here, I can create this, what you need to do. Don't tell nobody this, right? So that's how they got the name of witches. Not what you see today, although with the wands and casting magic spells and stuff. But even still, them, if you watch it closely, what are they doing? What are those witches doing? They're taking herbs and stuff. Vampire, what do you call it? Vampire's Bane or some stuff. I watch a lot of movies. But you will see them, even when they're doing spells and concoctions, they're mixing up herbs. And they also got something crazy that they put in there. Like if they doing a spell on somebody, see if you can get a lock of their hair or something. Crazy stuff, right? But it's still, it's the mixing of herbs. Understanding herbs. They're master herbalists. But they outlawed it because that knowledge was being used against them, and they wouldn't let them lord over them. So they found out you were doing it, burn them at the stake. Salem witch trials. Everybody's a witch, right? So, and that's what, if people don't understand it, it kind of keeps them going in further, just looking at the information to see what's there. After I got over that little spooky part and realized it wasn't really a boogeyman at the door, it was like a stuffed mannequin set in place. Look, oh shoot, somebody there. Wait a minute, dude ain't moved. How long he gonna hold that position? Hold on, let me just check. It's been 4 hours. He ain't even blinked. Because you standing back, ain't trying to look. You can't realize, because you're not getting a real good look, that it's a man, like scarecrows. It's a scarecrow. You know how birds are, I ain't gonna say birds are dumb. Put a scarecrow out there, they think it's a real person, and they stay away from your crops, right? Same way, they take all the good information that y'all need, is hidden in the occultic realm. I know that sounds like blasphemy to Christian ears, but I'm telling you, what you need, they have hidden there, and the boogeyman that they put is the name occult and witch. They're taking all the information and they're using it against you because you ignorant and you scared. They instill fear into you. Why you in the church, tell you to wait on Jesus to come save you. And everything you need to do, just do it in Jesus' name. That's your key to get out of the scary situations, right? Why they laughing at you the whole time? You see these fools over here. Jesus, yes. You know, they're making fun of you and they're using all the stuff that you should have. I'm just saying. Get me going about this whole situation. Yes, thank you, blessed and healthy. Occult means hidden information, but that's not too obvious to a lot of people. It's just like occult, scary, occult, scary. They put it in movies. Oh, it's the occult, and they do a scary scene. So they're merging a word and a picture to indirectly teach you to stay away from this because it's scary. Anything occultic, this, stay away, because you have flashbacks of what occultic is from the visions and stuff that they give to you from what you watch. They pair words with scenes that shouldn't be paired with them to teach you to stay away from it. Occult, scary, witch, stay away, right? And we don't even go tiptoeing like, okay, I'm gonna just give me some binoculars. Let me just look afar off first and see what's going on before I get a little too close. We don't even do that because the movies have scared us so good that we stay away from the information that we really should have. They've hidden everything from you, right? And I'm just here letting y'all know, look, it ain't really a boogeyman, y'all. It's a scarecrow. But just watch me. I'm gonna go. I ain't got too far yet because I'm still trying to figure out if that's a scarecrow too. I don't know. I'm still a little bit scared, but I'm like Joyce Meyer said, do it afraid, right? I'm gonna figure it out. If y'all ain't gonna go, I'll go. Y'all just pray my strength in the Lord. Well, let me keep reading. Okay, y'all. But anyway, I digress. I got all onto that with the what he said. Hold on. As our current accumulated objective knowledge reaches its limits and begins to dissolve into the seemingly unknowable, what lies beyond our presumed theoretical reach is defined as mystical, right? So things that we don't know, it's mystical or scary or it's occultic. Even the Hebrews are using these words, stay away from this. Are you trying to say people, they're really getting on people that are bringing some of this out. I ain't going to call their names, but I think there's a few people that I see that they're actually going in there showing you things. They label it where they're labeling it our information. I would say yes, our information, because now they're starting to bring out some of these more mystical things. And this one person that shocked me, they start bringing out things about the magic. I'm like, oh shoot, you on to something. I didn't think anybody else would be bold enough to do this, but they starting to bring it out, right? I go straight to the comment section. Straight to the comment section. You got people like, yes, bring it out, been waiting for this. And you got people like, oh, you getting off, brother. Just leave that alone. We ain't supposed to be practicing magic. And it's always somebody that throw that out of place scripture in there, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. I'm like, see, there they go. They scared. They ain't even paying attention to what the man is trying to tell them, right? So, but anyway, y'all might know who I'm talking about, but what he bringing out is true. Now, he's going a little bit further than what I did with it, because with their magic, they mix certain things into it because of who they are. And I realized, yes, babe, when I was going through that particular phase and looking at some of those magic books that they have, just really because I was curious. I'm like, okay, what is really in magic books? Reading what they have and reading through some of the spells and how it's done and stuff. But what I realized was that certain people don't necessarily have to carry out the magic spell like it's written in a book. And that's why I had to close it real quick, because I was reading through one. I'm like, kid y'all not. I called my sister. I'm like, yo, Leisha. I said, I didn't even do the magic spell. When I read it, the jank happened. And she said, girl, I know. She said, I think it's something, they add all this extra stuff because at this point, what we understood, right? And this was a few months back. She said, here's what I think. Remember how a few months back, when we were in the Legends of the Jews. Remember how when Moses, he was going back and forth with they had already gotten out of Egypt. They were in the wilderness, and Yah was about to kill them again for being hard-headed and not listening and complaining. I forget exactly which chapter it is, but it's on the section of Moses while they're in the wilderness. And it talks about how Moses drew a circle around himself. Now, it was about this time that we had really started looking into some of the magic books and stuff, or what they tell us to stay away from, just to see what is in there. But when I saw it, when I understood what it was, I began to see it through the scriptures. I'm like, yo, they got the scripture here, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, yet they have magic and incantations all through the goddamn Bible. And in some of these other texts that they've taken away in the Apocrypha, I can see it everywhere, right? And so it says Moses drew, he cried out to Yah. He said, well, if you don't do it, he said, you've already taught me how. And he took his staff and he drew a circle around himself. As soon as I read, I was like, Moses was about to cast a spell. That's why he drew a circle around himself. So if y'all familiar with any kind of movies, witch movies or occultic movies, you'll know when they go to cast a spell, they got the Baphomet star or whatever. But they'll always draw a circle around whatever it is they're about to do. So everything they do inside of the circle. The circle represents protection, right? Because if you are not, let me make sure I explain this the right way. If you are not, let's say, if you're not authorized to use the magic, you have to use, make sure I say this the right way. I don't want to get anybody screwed up. You have to use, let's say, supplemental, or you have to take some extra steps to ensure your safety. Now, what I realize is those who are authorized to use the magic, if you want to call it magic, they don't have to draw circles around themselves, because they are the very source of the magic. But they don't realize. Some people don't realize it. So what you'll find out is people who, whose channel am I referring to? If you send me a email, I'll email you the name of the channel. MP, because I said I wasn't going to start calling people channel names out and stuff, because, yeah, the Zohar and the Kabbalah, they talk about it too. So if you send me a message, if y'all send me a message and ask me, I tell you whose channel I'm talking about. But I don't want to, say it up here, just because I haven't gone through a lot of their stuff. But it looks like they're on track as they're waking up. They're seeing the things that we've been seeing, right? So they're getting into it, but they're bringing out more of the stuff. And it's a male. He's actually giving people the names of those particular magic books. I'm like, that might not be such a wise thing. So it just depends. I don't really know his audience, if all of them are mature enough and they'll go through and actually read it, or they're just going to try and find a spell or incantation to deal with a situation, right? So back to what I was saying. What I realize is that those who are authorized to use the magic, or those who have been properly trained in it, they don't necessarily have to draw a circle around themselves, right? It's almost like you growing up and getting your license. When you get your permit, there always has to be somebody who's licensed in a car with you. You can't go by yourself, right? Until you're authorized, you've been fully trained, you had enough practice, and you know how to operate in this without getting yourself or anybody else killed that may be with you or may be around you while you're driving. I look at it like that, right? But like I said, what I realize is we don't necessarily have to draw circles around ourselves. And I wouldn't necessarily call it magic either. Now that I understand more about it, I understand a whole lot more about it. than I did last year, because I actually ordered quite a few materials and almost like a whole library of one particular person. Even they have ones, magic books on like Enochian, they call it Enochian magic, the type of magic that was being used by Enoch and during his day. And that's the one that really caught my attention, because I love the book of Enoch, right? I studied the book of Enoch, even in nature and stuff. So I was like, well, let me check this out, but there is a lot of magic books on Enochian magic, and they will give you steps to do certain things. And I looked at a couple of them. I wouldn't necessarily try some of the stuff that they put in there. I take my time and I go through different ones, but the particular one that I got, I like it because the author of this particular one, he goes through and he explains a whole lot of stuff in detail. If you're a person that just want to just get to it, I don't need all that, then I would recommend that if you did get one, that you would get that. And I would tell you, don't start trying to do anything. Matter of fact, the way it's set up, he's not even teaching you spells, but he's teaching you what was actually happening. What we call magic is not really magic at all. But if you don't have that proper understanding, you can go out here and get yourself into some trouble. You're going to do something that you might not be able to undo. And I like this particular author, like I said, because he teaches it and give you a very thorough understanding. And when you really understand it, then you're going to realize, oh my gee, that's not magic at all. It seems magic to those who are unlearned, right? Or those who do not understand. It's simply understanding how to manipulate the elements and stuff. Have I read any of Helena Blavatsky's writings? I haven't. I heard of her, but I haven't read anything by her. So if y'all want to know, just and don't ask me if you want to know so you can go get a magic book. But if you really want to know, if you're curious, if you just observing and stuff, email me. I'll let y'all know what channel I'm talking about. The one of them in particular, I'll let you know, because I think, although some of his stuff is still off, I can tell he's growing and he's checking out stuff. And he'll say, wait a minute, y'all, we need to relearn a whole lot of stuff, because there's a lot of stuff I used to believe that I don't necessarily believe anymore because of this information that I've come across. And this really seems credible up to this point from what I understand. So I like him. So if you email me, I'll let you know what the channel is. Okay, so let's get back to this. I'll read this again. As our current accumulated objective knowledge reaches its limits and begins to dissolve into the seemingly unknowable, what lies beyond our presumed theoretical reach is defined as mystical. Such presumptions well up from our belief about objective reality. Thus, what appears to be mystical or unknowable from the view of Western culture simply reflects Western cultural beliefs and the limited understanding of contemporary science. Consequently, it is a double dose of ignorance, cultural beliefs, and limited scientific knowledge that defines what appears to be beyond our serious consideration. Think about the next time you roll your eyes and snicker because you universally associate the concept of mystical with ignorance, other people's, not yours, foolishness, and unscientific blather, right? You'll see a lot of this in the Hebrew community online. Those are waking up Christians, and those, especially in Africa, you got some of the woke Hebrews in America calling the ones in Africa. They saying they're getting all into mysticism, and the ones here that really has that ignorant Western mindset and can't really understand what the ones in Africa are talking about. I was on that train until I started looking into some stuff. Some things was catching my attention. I was like, oh, what they're saying is true, right? Because we're ignorant about a lot of things, right? The science is a little bit, I ain't gonna say it's different. We don't understand the science behind it a lot of times, and therefore we label it mystical, heretical. We call it Satan, the devil. We call it witchcraft when it's none of them. None of them. For an individual, the process is more personal. What may be perceived by an individual to be mystical is relative to the individual's understanding, knowledge, and ignorance. It is our personal beliefs that determine what we consider to be mystical. Whether an individual knows little or much about either physical matter reality or non-physical matter reality, what lies beyond the reach of his or her personal understanding and knowledge may be 1. Interpreted by that individual as mystical. 2. Construed by belief to something that suits the needs of the individual. 3. Regarded as a temporary ignorance of something theoretically knowable. Or 4. Regarded as a permanent ignorance of something theoretically unknowable. An individual's conclusions regarding what lies beyond his objective reach are necessarily belief-based, unless, of course, the conclusion is that there can be no conclusions. Nevertheless, most of us embrace a multitude of both culturally given and personally derived belief-based conclusions with a degree of certainty that only a deep, bone-level ignorance could sustain. Belief is a conclusion based upon a mystical premise. Scientists might believe that what is unknown must be contained within the PMR dataset, or the physical matter reality, which is this reality where we're currently operating now, not like the dream state. The dream state, astral projection, remote viewing, that's considered the non-matter physical reality. But this is the physical matter reality where we're woke, or really still asleep, like in the Matrix. But I digress. Belief is a conclusion based upon a mystical premise. Scientists might believe that what is unknown must be contained within the PMR dataset and follow ordinary objective causality, but that belief, or article of faith, simply expresses a more accepted form of mysticism. Mysticism that supports our cultural beliefs is accepted as obvious fact, right? There is I think about one particular channel with this statement right here. Let me read this again. Mysticism that supports our cultural beliefs is accepted as obvious fact. And not necessarily like this one channel, but the church in particular, right? Even though the whole Jesus thing, the miracles that happened, the different things, or Jesus did it. I called on Jesus and Jesus did it, right? Even though they may not technically be using the appropriate names, but what they're familiar with works with them, because the Creator is not as hung up on terms, so to speak, as we humans are, as we come to the light of some things, right? So what they know to use and works for them, they'll continue to use it, right? But a lot of them kind of stay at that particular level of growth as well. And I kind of look at that is that they're like children. Even though they claim all these great miracles in Jesus' name and they're on fire, they raising up an army and all this stuff. Even though they claim that, if you look at them and as you grow, you realize that they're really babies. They are truly, really babies, and they're lacking majorly in their understanding. They'll get some results, just like little babies. Think about toddlers and stuff that don't necessarily know how to pronounce names, or you tell them a name and they heard it a different way and they just gonna say something else. But you don't go off on toddlers because they said your name wrong. No, you know they're talking to you, right? And so you just carry on like they said it the right way. And I think that's what trips up a lot of Christians. And that's why a lot of them can't get over the JC term. And they continue to use it because it's been working. It's what works for me. To whereas now, when it was working for me, that at a certain point, that actually, as my understanding grew, it was like, okay, you're a little bit older, so this is not going to be considered foolishness for you. Don't do it, right? And it wouldn't work for me anymore. Now, what I knew to be correct, I began to use that, and that began to work even more powerfully than JC had ever worked for me, ever in my life, even in my dreams, right? Even in my dreams, when I used to when I was having like a demonic attack in my dreams and I would go to call on the name of Jesus, I could never get it out. It's like somebody would be, you ever seen on Matrix how when they interrogate Neo and his mouth, he go to, and his mouth, like there are like lines of skin in between his mouth where he trying to open his mouth, but it's being blurred. That's what it felt like in my dreams, and it would always happen every time I would go to call on the name of JC, like, and it's like, and I'm screaming with all my might, and it's like, you know, and whatever is happening, and me trying to scream the name Jesus would not be working. But when I transitioned from Jesus to Yeshua, that worked a little bit better. And then when I transitioned from Yeshua to Yahusha, that worked a little bit better than what that did. And then when I transitioned from Yahusha to Yahuwah, it's like boom. It's like the power just, and it's like, who gonna stop me? It's like I got the key. I know how to use it, right? Look, I'm gonna share a video with y'all. It's a few curse words in it, but it's friggin' hilarious. Remember, I think it was December 2020, with a whole big thing. Yeah, it had to be December 2020, where everybody was talking about black people supposed to be getting their superpowers. Look, it's a video that what is it? What's the name of that group? It's RC. I think it's RC1. They do a lot of anime stuff. It's a group of black kids, and it's another like mixed Hispanic guy in there with them. But they do these anime videos. They're anime heads, so they got this little series that they do called Anime House, right? It's a bunch of teenagers acting foolish, but it's friggin' hilarious to me. So during this time, they actually did like a little skit about when black people get their superpowers. So they out there in the park and they got these makeshift capes around their neck and stuff, and they practicing their superpowers, and this news reporter come up and was like, hey, so what are you gonna do now that you got your superpowers? What we gonna do? You know all the stuff you made us do back in slavery? We ain't doing it no more. Y'all gonna do that. What do you mean? We didn't say it. You said it. You know, it's so funny. And then they got their little their animations with the fire and jumping up in the air and them screaming like, who gonna stop us? It is hilarious. I'm gonna share it with y'all. Y'all see what I'm talking about. But hold on. The Anime House. Y'all probably be like, why does this girl be watching this stuff? I get so many teachable lessons out of this. Plus my kids like to watch anime. And so when they have it on, it's interesting. Some things just kind of catch me because there's a lot of spiritual things that are given in anime that you won't find in any other type of cartoon. I want to say it's really cartoons for adults, but they have missed the message that's being given to you, and kids will pick it up just like that, you know. So, but yeah, once you know better, you do better, you know. So that's why, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's like the Christian, those who are so stuck on calling on the name of JC, it's like, well, this is what works. This is what I was taught. This is what I believe in. Ain't nobody coming to change that. And if anybody come even try to mention something, they think, the devil, you trying to get me sidetracked, devil, get thee behind me, Satan. I'm like, really? And some of them you just can't talk to. So it was one particular person. I wasn't mean or anything. You might want to check into this or this. They go and do whole videos like Satan trying to throw them. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just go delete my comment. But I did it. I'm just like, you're not even considering that you might not possibly have all the information. It's just some people's like, you can't tell them nothing at all. They won't even go look into it. If it ain't got nothing to do with the Bible, they won't even consider looking outside of the Bible whatsoever. If you tell them missing pieces, well, it must be missing for a reason. I ain't going to look for it. I'm just like, oh, you're such a toddler. But I won't say that. I think that I'm going about my business. I shake the dust off my feet and keep on going. Yeah, they start condemning you real quick. And do videos. I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy. But I brought that up because right here where it says, hold on, right here, mysticism that supports our cultural belief is accepted as obvious fact. A lot of people in the Christian church still, they believe that, oh, well, this is fact because this happened. Well, not necessarily. I know it seems to be that way because that's what you were taught. So they take the whole Jesus thing and take it as fact. Even though a lot of times there are a lot of questions that they can't seem to answer, and Jesus don't seem to give them answers for. Or they say that Jesus then told them something, then something. Big case in point. During the last the last presidential thing, right? There were a lot of people, the evangelicals and all this stuff, but and also including this one person too. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, God told me and Jesus said this is Donald Trump is gonna get back, and I'm like, no, he didn't. Like, and I knew this months before the what you call it. I was like, yep, his time is up. Like, I had multiple dreams, and some people like, oh well, depending on how you feel about a situation. That's how I knew. I really knew. I found out during that time that you have to really be careful about your dreams, because your dreams can be influenced by what you believe. And if you're already leaning, or if you're bent in a certain way, you're going to look for things that's going to go with what you already believe, things that support what you already believe, even though what you believe may not be true. So I saw this one particular person when it came out that he is no longer the president. Like, they looked distraught, like, Jesus, I know you told me. I'm like, I was about to say something. I don't know if it's anybody other than my people up here. I had to catch myself. I said backwards. Regin. If anybody know what Regin is, that's the Nigga said backwards. It's like, Regin. No, he didn't. It's your feelings, what you wanted to see happen. People get so spiritual that they lose their common sense a lot of times. And that's what I saw began to happen with this particular person. They did a video, like, looking out the window, standing out the window, like, guys, I don't know what happened, because I know for sure that Jesus told me that Donald Trump was getting back in the office, and I don't know. Maybe it'll be at a later date, and like all these things. Well, I know the Lord speaks to me, but that person just wouldn't. It's like, well, something must be wrong with the rest of the world and not with me, because I know that this man is still president. It's like what do you want to call it? The lunacy of it all. I was just like, that still didn't wake you up. And that people just don't like to believe that how they feel a lot of times will take them in a direction, even if that's not what our Father is telling them. They'll believe something so much and tell you that Jesus is mental. Yeah, that's a good word for it, Alicia, y'all. Mental illness. That's what it is. You know, they will take and go on with something, even when all outside information is like stamped, sealed, done. There is nothing changing this, you know, and it's the lunacy of it all. Not saying things like that can't happen, because it does, but some things it's like, what is it going to take to wake you up, for you to realize that what you're believing, you got all these loopholes in what you were taught to believe. A lot of these things we hear people say, especially a lot of Christians, they regurgitate what they heard, right? These are not even their own thoughts that they have about religion and the God that they serve. These are other people's created thoughts, and they just repeat it without even thinking about it. And then will go toe to toe with you and fight you to the bloody death to defend something that wasn't even their very own thought to begin with. It was implanted in you, right? Just like when you start talking to people about the scriptures in Isaiah where they say, oh, this is a foretelling of Jesus. I can tell you exactly what you're about to say to me. I know every argument you're about to come, because it was programmed into you. That's how I already got answers ready for you. I ain't got to sit and think about this, because all of you say the same exact thing. That was programmed into you. Those are not your original thoughts. And people don't seem to catch that and realize that. It's crazy, right? So they take their cultural beliefs as absolute fact. And I got into that because of what he said right here, right? Mysticism that supports our cultural beliefs is accepted as obvious fact. By definition, such a belief necessarily appears to be the most reasonable assumption that a rational person within that culture can make. This is how ordinary mysticism, expressed as cultural and personal beliefs, is transmuted into an unquestioned philosophical foundation. We see that the objective causality of Western materialism must necessarily spring from a foundation of mystical assumption. Voila. Faith becomes science, or at least an integral part of the scientific attitude. The results of this illogical transformation continue in chain reaction. Next, science becomes truth, or at least the sole judge of truth, and is given the job of defining reality. Thus, from the Western perspective, the world of ideas and concepts bifurcates, bifurcates, bifurcates. Thus, from the Western perspective, the world of ideas and concepts bifurcates with science and truth on the one hand and philosophy and conjecture on the other. Though science is important because it produces a marvelous array of useful physical products, philosophy is marginalized because it produces nothing but useless arguments. In the final act of this comedy of errors, we see the science unable to overcome the barrier of its ancient, no longer useful, faith-based paradigms becomes imprisoned by the limitations of its core beliefs, right? So people become imprisoned by their beliefs, right? And a lot of times their beliefs have not been validated and verified with the truth. And so now they're a prisoner to what they believe. Some people trying to break out, but they don't know how. They get too scared. I'm running back, calling on the name of Jesus. I'm going to go sit down in the pew. Ooh. Though science is important because it produces a marvelous array of useful physical products, philosophy is marginalized because it produces nothing but useless arguments. In the final act of this comedy of errors, we see that science, unable to overcome the barrier of its ancient, no longer useful, faith-based paradigms, becomes imprisoned by the limitations of its core beliefs. As science struggles with its self-induced myopia, philosophy tries in vain to mimic science's illusion of objectivity in order to appear relevant. Does this not remind you of some preposterously convoluted French farce? But wait. The action isn't over. There is a surprise ending. However, you will have to take this journey with me and my big toe from here to the end of section 6 if you want to discover how this drama plays out. And that time does come, don't it, Alicia? Okay, so here's one of those short asides. You know how he takes those side triangles? It's a little story that he puts into the bigger thing. Okay, so here's an aside. No doubt about it, I am putting you off. Why? Because if I told you the ending now, before thoroughly discussing some of your current beliefs and paradigms, you could not get it. I know that you are experienced and brilliant, but that is not the point. Seeing the big picture requires more than intellectual capacity. It also requires transcending ingrained belief systems. That is something that many people are not willing or able to do, at least not quickly or easily, if at all, i.e. switching from the believing in the JC and even some of the irrational things that you do based on what you believe. A lot of people not even willing to even just step back and look at, okay, if it's the truth. We shouldn't be taken aback when somebody asks us to step back and examine this. We should be, let's step back and examine this. But what we find is when we step back and examine this, well, oh shoot, what that, okay, well, I don't know. I don't know. Forget it all. Faith, I believe it. God said it, so that's why I'm doing it. I ain't got to answer to you. These are not even my words. They're what he said. And I'm just, you get all that kind of foolishness, right? But let me keep reading because I'm going to just start talking about it. It also requires transcending ingrained beliefs. That is something that many people are not willing or able to do, at least not quickly or easily, if at all. That is why a trilogy is required instead of a technical paper. Academic papers provide a medium for communicating something of value only if one is working within the accepted cultural and scientific belief systems. Consequently, significant new knowledge is typically generated by meticulously taking countless tiny steps of ever-expanding detail toward some specific goal. Digging out details requires a totally different mental process than discovering big picture paradigms. Today, almost all scientists remain focused on prying details from a reality exclusively circumscribed by traditional scientific belief. Fact is, you will never be able to see the big picture as long as you focus on individual politically correct pixels. Because my big toe must go beyond traditional belief systems to introduce an entirely new understanding of reality, much of this trilogy must necessarily be spent broadening your perspective. Have patience and resist the urge to come to what appear. Have patience and resist the urge to come to what appear to be obvious conclusions before you have consumed the entire trilogy. So what he's telling you is stay in class. Don't just jump. Don't assume. Stay in class. See this thing out. Just pay attention. Listen to what I'm saying before you argue. Just follow along with me. Have patience and resist the urge to come to what appear to be obvious conclusions before you have consumed the entire trilogy. Transcending old paradigms and belief systems is as inherently difficult a process to facilitate as it is to undergo, right? And I tell you the truth, he ain't said no lies there, because when you begin to wake up and you become woke, it's almost like you are detoxing. Well, I don't know what detoxing from drugs is. I've just kind of seen it, people on the TV and stuff. It's almost like that. It's not like this, frolicking through the fields, galloping through lilies and tulips and smelling the beautiful fragrances. It is not like that at all. It is like you're detoxing, like, what is going on? Oh my God, what have I been doing? It's like this total shock to your system, awakening, realizing what has been going on. And like, I've really been living in filth. Where have I really been all this time? What I've been doing? Where has my mind been? Yes, Joe's like, girl, it's rough. Like, when I realized that I was worshiping another God in the church. Now, what I consider to be worshiping another God, i.e., calling the Creator something other than who he really was. Now, but there's a difference with, I ain't gonna say a difference. A lot of people who are waking up is because we really thought that what we believed was true, and our hearts were pure in that fact, right? What we were in, we really thought, yes, this our worshiping God, and we didn't realize that we were using pagan terms or whatever, things that kind of been mixed and passed along, and we really thought we was doing what was right. So I believe it's those ones who really thought we were doing what's right, is those who are waking up, and we're quick to change, right? It's like, oh no, guys, look, hold on, we gotta adjust, because we don't want to be found guilty of those things that hurt the heart of our Creator, right? It's like, okay, we doing something, we got to adjust this a little bit more. We may be in shock, but we will adjust, right? And you will actually see us adjusting more quickly, or a little more quicker, than some people who are just stuck in their ways and want to headbutt and argue about everything. You not serious, but I need to make sure I'm doing what's right, so inwardly, like, Yah sees that our heart inwardly, and he knows that out of ignorance we really thought that we were talking to him, which is why when we use the name of Jesus, sometimes it worked, right? We saw power. That's where the power comes from. It's not that the power comes from the name. It comes from the fact that you were pure in heart. And that's what a lot of people do not get. And that's why they can't let the name of Jesus go and whatever it is. It's not about the name. They got you off looking at something, it's like that Jedi mind trick. It's not about the name, right? It really is about the intentions of the heart. And because our intentions were pure of heart, although we was doing what was wrong, y'all corrected us along the way, right? And through steps, and he has to like slowly wake us up and kind of filter some things on us based on what we already understand. Because if we don't have understanding about something, before he fully awakes you, he's going to probably have to lead you to some things so you can understand a little bit more before he can just give that to you. Because if he just gave that to you, it'd probably take you into eternity right now. You couldn't handle it. So it's some things you have to build up to, just like children grow, right? While they're younger, you have to carry them until their legs get strong enough, till they learn how to crawl, till they can hold up their own body strength. It's kind of like that. That's how I look at Christians. I was like, you're a baby. You're a freaking toddler, right? And you're throwing fits, and you're crying and you're tearing and snotting and stuff because you don't realize that the power is in you. It is you. And you're hollering out and you're crying, Daddy, help, please. You're a baby, right? But as you get a little bit older, I got this, my G. And we make it happen, right? So, exactly what I'm feeling now. It's like your world that you know is, yes, Audrey. It's like the world that you know is flipped upside down, and you constantly search for real truth. That's exactly what it is, right? So we're going from truth to truth. We thought we was woke last year, but it's like, girl, you still really sleep. Like, I look back at myself over some of my videos. It's like, girl, whoo, you coming along, you moving, but you were still quite ignorant last year. Compared to this year, yo, it's like, but I leave videos up like I really want to delete them all, right? Because I'm like, oh, that was not the truth what I was saying. But I will correct. You'll see, if you watch the videos, I leave them up. And so many times I go looking, I'm going to go to delete them, and it's like, leave them up. Leave them up. It's going to help other people as they're waking up. Let them see your process. They're going to see how you was crazy. And then you start leveling out. And then you're going to start correcting. And you're going to have to apologize for a lot of that craziness you said. Right? And I see that. I'm just like, oh, and it's humbling at the same time. I'm like, y'all, look. Don't even go back to my earliest videos. Right? I say start in the last year for real. Otherwise, you're going to go with me through my shenanigans and my misappropriate ways that I said stuff. And I mean, if you want to see that might actually be helpful for some people, which I think it is. And some people said, I'm glad you left it up. Okay, well, if it's helping you, bless y'all, because I struggle with it every day to remove it. Because it's like, oh, girl, you are such a toddler. I talk to my own self. You are such a toddler, Pam. Okay. Yeah, it really is. I've learned to just enjoy the journey along the way, right? It is about the destination, but what's more important is the journey, how you get through the journey, what you learn along the way, right? And you learn along the way that you might not always be right? A lot of things I was like, look, that's why I was just transparent. I was like, look, y'all, if I said something that was screwed up, when I realize it, I'm going to correct it. And y'all just forgive me ahead of time, right? But if I found that I said something wrong or did something wrong, when I notice it, when I realize it, I will go back and correct it, so. But yeah, so I'm glad you didn't delete them, because when I first came across your channel, I had to start from the beginning to get here. I couldn't just jump in. Oh, well, yeah, you got a point, right? Because some people, they may be totally lost when we come here. It's like, girl, first of all, you was reading the Bible. What is you doing now, right? Because it's the process I'm taking y'all through. And if they don't, you're right. So if people don't understand, it's like, oh, here's another heretic. But if they haven't been here to see it, yeah. So that's something I still struggle with, y'all, because I just... Okay, back to this. Look, okay. That is something that many people are not willing, excuse me, or able to do, at least not quickly or easily, if at all. That is why a trilogy is required instead of a technical paper. Academic papers provide a medium for communicating something of value only if one is working within the accepted cultural and scientific belief systems. Consequently, significant new knowledge is typically generated by meticulously taking countless tiny steps of ever-expanding detail towards some specific goal. Digging out details requires a totally different mental process than discovering big picture paradigms. Today, almost all scientists remain focused on prying details from a reality exclusively circumscribed by traditional scientific belief. Fact is, you will never be able to see the big picture as long as you focus on individual politically correct pixels. Because my big toe must go beyond traditional belief systems to introduce an entirely new understanding of reality, much of this trilogy must necessarily be spent broadening your perspective. Have patience and resist the urge to come to what appear to be obvious conclusions before you have consumed the entire trilogy. Transcending old paradigms and belief systems is as inherently difficult a process to facilitate as it is to undergo. Okay, so that's the end of the little aside. That's good. I like that, Francis. She said, I remember reading a text that said, what was good yesterday may not be good today. Oh, the truth that is found in that statement there. Because what worked yesterday definitely may not work today. We're in different times, so we have to adjust it just a little bit to keep up. Okay. Will my big toe come to the rescue and re-energize this languishing drama and stultified? What? Yeah, stultified. Stultified. Okay. Will my big toe come to the rescue and re-energize this languishing drama of stultified science and marginalized philosophy by dissolving the Gordian knot of limiting belief that condemns both to little... Hold on. I'm reading the sentence too slow. Oh, okay. Let me start over. Okay. Will my big toe come to the rescue and re-energize this languishing drama of stultified science and marginalized philosophy by dissolving the Gordian knot of limiting belief that condemns both to little more than picking the bones of the past, simply taking the next logical step, or digging ever deeper into the detail of yesterday's discoveries? Can my big toe successfully raise science to the next plateau of understanding while simultaneously returning philosophy to its rightful place, leading the parade of human progress with meaningful and useful insight? Stay tuned. What I hope to accomplish in this section is to develop the basic concepts necessary to support a rational theory of existence, a conceptualization that provides the foundation for a reasonable, big picture theory of everything. Big toe. In the process, I hope to push your mystical edge where knowledge meets ignorance back to a point where the residual unknown has no potential significance and is of no practical interest. A toe, or a theory of everything. Remember, toe is short for theory of everything. My big toe, or my big theory of everything, or my perception of how everything works, right? My big toe. A toe that does not reach beyond physical matter reality is only a little toe, little picture theory of everything, confined to PMR or confined to physical matter reality and limited to a local causality. Can you imagine the elements and limitations of a tiny toe from the perspective of bacteria living in your intestines? Would a seemingly complete and comprehensive view of the would a seemingly complete and comprehensive from the view of the bacteria, tiny toe be concerned with the nuclear fusion taking place within the sun or the density and the composition of our atmosphere? No, of course not. These things have no direct significance to the bacteria in your intestines. Although all things that live upon the earth depend on the sun's energy and the composition and density of the earth's of the Earth's atmosphere, the bacteria in your intestine cannot directly experience either. Their tiny toe needs only to describe everything that is potentially knowable by the bacteria. So if that sounded like a bunch of blah, 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 I gave the example of us looking at the big picture of everything compared to the small, tiny bacteria in our body looking at the big picture of everything happening in our body. And it said that really doesn't need to happen. What you really need to know is everything about yourself, like the bacteria. That's all the bacteria needs to really be concerned with in order to operate appropriately. Like we have good bacteria and bad bacteria in our body, right? So the bad bacteria decided not to function and what it did and worry about, okay, what is the eyes doing up there? Matter of fact, what are the eyes seeing? What is that? Is that a sun? Hey, guys, everybody come look at this. What is, like, it doesn't really need to be concerned about those things. You just really need to be concerned about your big toe and how you were created. You get it? And like what you're supposed to be doing. Okay. Let me read that again. A toe that does not reach beyond PMR is physical matter reality, is only a little toe, little picture theory of everything confined to physical matter reality and limited to a local causality. Can you imagine the elements and limitations of a tiny toe from the perspective of bacteria living in your intestines? Would a seemingly complete and comprehensive, from the view of the bacteria, tiny toe be concerned with the nuclear fusion taking place within our sun or the density and composition of our atmosphere? No, of course not. These things have no direct significance to the bacteria in your intestines. Although all things that live upon the earth depend on the sun's energy and the composition and density of the earth's atmosphere, the bacteria in your intestine cannot directly experience either. Their tiny toe needs only to describe everything that is potentially knowable by the bacteria. To a given awareness, the practical definition of the word everything means everything knowable, important, meaningful or significant that can directly interact with that awareness. Thus, what constitutes a comprehensive and complete big toe is relative to your perspective, knowledge, and limitations. That tiny toe would seem complete from the view of the bacteria, even if it neglected to include the money in your bank account, the light bulb in your refrigerator, or the car in your garage. However, these items may indirectly have a profound effect on the current intestinal environment. Money, refrigerators, light bulbs, and automobiles are too far removed, far beyond the practical, functional, or theoretical scope of a bacterium's tiny toe to be Money, refrigerators, light bulbs, and automobiles are too far removed, far beyond the practical, functional, or theoretical scope of a bacterium's tiny toe to be considered, to be comprehended by the bacteria, or to be of any direct importance to them. To the bacteria in the intestine, the source of digested food descending from the stomach would seem mystical. The economic, social, and physical circumstances and processes that indirectly result in a particular food being deposited in the stomach would be beyond mystical. The causal mechanisms that drive and order these apparently mystical events and processes are necessarily invisible to even the most brilliant intestinal bacteria. The forces and relationships that govern the growing of wheat, as well as the making and marketing of breads, falls beyond a bacterium's theoretical ability to imagine, and therefore forever lies beyond the largest reality it can possibly comprehend. Do not be too surprised to find Homo sapiens in a similar situation. That's good. It is a difficult pill for many, especially scientists, to swallow. The concept that there may be a natural, practical limit to the extent of our knowledge A limit beyond our perception cannot penetrate. A limit beyond which our perception cannot penetrate is based upon the notion that we are only a very small part of a much larger reality. This humbling thought runs counter to the significance and self-importance we humans place upon ourselves. Bella, can you turn that down a little bit, please?
Mom.
Turn it down a little bit.
Mom, we can go to Nani's house with her birthday cake?
Yes, I talked to Nani yesterday. We got to make her another one. We got to make her another, remember? Because it split in half when we poured it out the pan. She talking about that cake, Mom. We were supposed to bring it to you yesterday, but we couldn't give you a half ripped up cake. We was trying to piece it back. I was like, you know what? This is ghetto. We just going to make another one. We about to make the third cake. The first one, like I said, when I turned my back, Bella added some extra eggs, right? And stirred it up. So when we put it in the oven, we got this tiny, tight bundt cake. I'm like, why didn't this cake rise and it's heavy? It feels like 10 pounds. I'm like, ain't nobody eating this crap, Bella. What did you do to this mix? So when we mixed up the next one, you just watch me this time. Make sure ain't no extra ingredients going in this, right? Perfect, nice and fluffy, beautiful. Take it, flip it over. It falls out, but the top half, apparently we didn't grease it good enough. It stuck to the top. It stuck to the pan while the bottom half just, because it was just light and fluffy, just, I'm like, so I tried to get the little butter knife, and I was like, we can probably just sit this piece. Yeah, it just kept, it didn't work. So they just ate the pieces of it, so we got to make another one. It's going to be perfect this time. Third time is the charm, right? Okay. Do not be surprised to find Homo sapiens in a similar situation. And we almost done, y'all. Hold on. Okay, yeah, we're going to read to the end of this. It's a couple more pages. But this is the intro to section 2. So we're going to finish this. This is a difficult pill for many, especially scientists, to swallow. The concept that there may be a natural, practical limit to the extent of our knowledge, a limit beyond which our perception cannot penetrate, is based upon the notion that we are only a very small part of a much greater reality. This humbling thought runs counter to the significance and self-importance we humans place upon ourselves. If our experience is limited to a small part of a larger reality, it is only reasonable to assume that beyond the limit of our possible knowing, there may well exist a host of phenomena, interactions, relationships, and ordered happenings upon which our reality and existence profoundly depends, but of which we cannot directly perceive, allowing the outside theoretical possibility that our beloved PMR may be a local reality, a subset of something larger, is the first step towards comprehending a bigger picture, right? And clearly, we know that's true. Like I said before, if anybody has ever experienced anything supernatural or otherworldly, we clearly know that there's a whole nother world out there that exists. And we can interact with. And we can actually go into before dying here, right? It's a whole nother world. Different sets of rules. And it's just, some people like, nope, it's of the devil. No. I'm like, gee. You're like the bacteria in the gut. That's what we are. We're really like the bacteria in the gut of a larger organism that's walking around this universe. That's really what we are. For real. Right? Okay. This possibility breaks the... Yeah, I think they're done, babe. Excuse me. This possibility breaks the conventional paradigm of PMR, or physical matter reality, being all there is, and replaces it with a more expansive paradigm that forms a larger superset. The limited little picture concept is fully contained within a more general, bigger picture concept. If the larger and more general paradigm provides a better and more concise understanding of the available data, as well as produces valuable new knowledge, approaches, and processes, then the more general conceptualization is also a more accurate, productive, and a truer representation of the whole. kind of like us transitioning from Jesus to Yeshua, to Yahusha, to Yahuwah. It's like what he just said, right? Hold on, I'll read that sentence again. If the larger and more general paradigm provides a better and more concise understanding of the available data, as well as produces new valuable knowledge, approaches, and processes, then the more general conceptualization is also a more accurate, productive, and truer representation of the whole. An improved reality paradigm is one that broadens and deepens the available solution space relative to existing data and problems in a way that is practical and useful. It is as easy to understand as the limitations of a bacterium's perspective as it is difficult to understand the limitations of our own perspective. That is natural enough. We cannot be aware of what is beyond our awareness. However, we can be open to learning new things and in the process expand the scope of our awareness and therefore our reality to its outer limits. At the top level, where any big picture must first be clearly drawn, my big toe will attempt to encompass everything known and knowable. What lies beyond my big toe will remain practically unknowable, forever mystical, because of the inherent limits of our vision. Nevertheless, both the mystical and beyond mystical will be explored as we have some fun with logical extrapolations that reach well beyond our capacity to comprehend. Okay, he has a little short aside here. We'll probably be done in the next, I say about 5 minutes, y'all. Let me read this. Okay, this next little side black triangle. Encompass everything knowable, derive physics from metaphysics, explain paranormal scientifically? No way. Even at the most general theoretical level, that's completely impossible. What's the catch? Is this guy nuts or what? I know the idea of encompassing or bounding everything known and knowable sounds unlikely at this point, as does the rest, but it is not as far-fetched as you may think. My big toe is not presented at such a high level of generality, nor is it so off the wall as to hold little direct scientific or practical value to the real world. No catch, no megalomania, no hypothetical wackiness, no goofy beliefs, just straightforward science that better describes the measured data and provides a wealth of practical results and new understanding that can be applied personally and professionally by scientists and non-scientists alike. By the end of this trilogy, you will be able to assess the accuracy of these seemingly impossible, unsubstantiated statements. Until then, open-minded skepticism is the only approach that retains the possibility of success for either of us. And that's the end of that little aside. Okay. Let's begin to explore the outer limits of our reality and see how far we can push back the boundary. We are generally somewhat smarter than bacteria and are theoretically limited only by the capacity of our minds. Unfortunately, we are limited by much more: beliefs, pseudo knowledge, false knowledge, preconceived notions, attitudes, fears, desires, needs, and cultural biases. For this reason, we must talk about some of these first. The biggest picture must cover everything. Everything objective, everything subjective, everything normal, and everything paranormal. Mind and matter, consciousness and concrete, all the true data and the facts of existence, the personal as well as the scientific, must be accounted for, compatible with, and contained within this single big toe, if it is a comprehensive and correct big toe, meaning everything that exists that we know of, the things that we know and the things that we don't know, must somehow fit into the overall big picture of everything, which our individual perspectives also so neatly fit within this bigger picture, right? So it has to be an explanation for all the individual big pictures and the biggest picture of all. Everything has to fit within this bigger puzzle. Okay, so that's what we are going to look at. Okay. If it is only a little toe or incorrect big toe, it will not support or explain all the data. So the correct outlook or the correct big toe should explain everything seen, everything unseen, and everything in between, right? It should encompass everything. And if it doesn't, if it still leaves us with questions, it's something wrong with this picture. Like Christianity leaves us with more questions than answers. There's something wrong with the picture. We need to investigate, right? If it is only a little toe or incorrect big toe, it will not support or explain all the data. It is your job to assess the extent to which this big toe explains your experience and knowledge. However, before reaching conclusions, it is important to understand the difference between knowledge and belief. In the chapter after the next, we will thoroughly explore that subject to set the stage for that challenging epistemological adventure. We must first take a look at our collective beginning. It is always a good idea to start at the beginning. Let's get started on this strange journey. Oh yes, it will need to be strange, or it could not possibly be a correct big toe. Trust me. Unless you have invested many years of experience in this area, what you are about to read will greatly challenge the elasticity of your mind. To make things worse, my insistence that this big toe is primarily derived from and based upon carefully evaluated scientific data rather than theoretical conjecture will require your sense of my credibility to stretch even further than your mind. Unfortunately, a reader with a simultaneously stretched mind and stretched sense of credibility puts me on thin ice from the beginning, but that is the way it has to be. Such is the nature of this topic. The facts of my experience and the results of my research. Something less strange or more widely credible would be easier to convey, find a wider audience, and be more acceptable to almost everyone, but it would not be correct. People generally believe that they know almost everything that is knowable, that the final few things to be figured out will constitute small steps compared to the distance already come. For example, scientists toward the end of the 19th century often lamented the obvious fact that everything important in science and technology had been discovered. Little more than a century later, that claim is laughable. By definition, it is clear that you cannot be aware of what you do not know. Yet, we almost always let our egos trick us into believing that we are much less ignorant than we actually are. Oh, ain't that the truth? It is often said that there is nothing as outrageous or strange as the truth. The truth of that statement, clearly demonstrated by modern physics, demands an open-minded approach. Hopefully, my big toe will stimulate you to consider some important things in an entirely new and beneficial way. Take it from wherever you can. The picture and perspective may be very big, and initially the credibility for those who do not know me may be very thin, but if you feel your way through it with your intuition, as well as think your way through it with your intellect, all the while collecting and applying the data of your experience, it might just make some sense to you. Appreciating and understanding the big picture is always the first step in focusing and directing the effective investment of the resources you have at your command. The point and purpose of this work is to offer an expanded view of reality and of your relationship to that reality. And your relationship to that reality that is useful and helpful to you in a direct and practical way. In my big toe, you will find a reality model that provides a unique perspective which can be profitably applied to your professional and personal life. One final caution. Section 2 lays down the conceptual foundation for much of the rest of the trilogy without explaining how these concepts link up later to complete the meaningful pattern. It may be difficult to get a firm grip on some of this material because it is predominantly abstract and may be relatively distant from your common everyday experience. Understanding and validation will accrue slowly as you digest the next 4 sections and bring your own explorations of big truth to bear on the conclusions drawn. Though there are many abstract tunnels to explore in section 2, there is precious little light to be seen at the end of any of them initially. Nevertheless, a logical approach requires many of the conceptual building blocks to be defined and set out before big toe construction can be initiated. Delay final judgments until these concepts are more fully developed and applied in subsequent sections. If you can hang tough, the method to the madness should become fully apparent by the time you finish book 3. If my big toe entices those who are open-minded and intrepid explorers to experience and investigate the far reaches of their reality on their own, I will be delighted. To be optimally effective, my discovery must lead to your discovery. I must not only help you to objectively understand the nature of your reality, but must also help you discover it in personal terms. In the end, if these books have no effect other than to cause you to reassess your beliefs, concepts, knowledge, and attitudes, regardless of what the outcome of that assessment is, my effort will have been worthwhile. Have at it. Good luck on your journey, and may you find value of lasting significance. And that, my beautiful people, is our reading for today. And that was the introduction to section 2, chapter 17, and My Big Toe on page 114. All right, y'all. So that was a long introduction. Not that long. It's not as long as the introduction to the entire book, but I think it's a good introduction for this next section we're about to get into. So, chapter 18 is In the Beginning. I think I'm saying this word wrong. Causality or causality. Causality. I'm going to look it up and I'm going to pronounce it right tomorrow. Causality and mysticism. Okay, so that's the title of the chapter tomorrow. We at an hour and 46 minutes. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize it was that long. But anyway, let's go ahead and end this. I hope y'all enjoyed it for today. It is Friday, January the 28th, 2022, day number 16 of year 4 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1034. We read Genesis 46 through 48, and we read the introduction. Was it what I said it was? 17? Chapter 17 of My Big Toe. Have I read Untethered Soul? No, but it sounds like that's going to be good. It's about astral projecting or remote viewing, the untethered soul. Because when I hear untethered, I think about that silver cord that attaches the astral body to the physical body. Am I right? I haven't read it, though. I just thought about it. The Untethered Soul. Is that what it's about? Is that what it is about? Dana. I'm going to look into it. The Untethered Soul. Hold on. Untethered Soul. I'm going to look it up. Okay, y'all. With that being said, Bella! Did she go upstairs?
Yeah, she upstairs.
Okay. Well, I ain't going to scream and holler for her. I'm going to go ahead and end this today. But be on the lookout. Look in the community section for that video from the Anime House group. Who gonna stop us? About the black people superpowers and stuff. It's super hilarious. It's only like 3 minutes, but it is hilarious nonetheless. Okay. With that being said, beautiful people, let's go ahead and do the blessing. And Dana, I'm going to look up the Untethered Soul. All right. So the blessing is found, y'all, in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah will kneel before us, presenting gifts, and will guard us with the hedge of protection. Yahuwah will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards us, bringing order, and he will provide us with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yahuwah will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon us, and he will set in place all we need to be whole and complete. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. So tomorrow, remember, it is our last day reading the book of Genesis. My lost book of Inky came in the mail yesterday, so I got it. We're going to be ready to go. If it wasn't here, we're just going to read from my electronic version. So we're going to get through them chapters. We're going to, I think we're going to read, we're going to read My Big Toe because we're going to add this in. But where we would normally read the Torah in the morning, we're going to be reading the Lost Book of Inky, which is a translation of the original scriptures that the Bible was translated from. So it's going to almost be like we're going back through Genesis again, but from the original translated scrolls. But within the translation, you will see, as we get through it, you're going to see how the different books were created and split up, and now you have like the book of Enoch and Genesis and Jasher and Jubilees. All of that information is like within it's not, maybe not all of it, but you will see how it all flows together in one text or whatever, right? So, but we're going to be reading that during a portion of the time we would normally be reading the Torah, because if there are more ancient scriptures, we want to get to the more ancient scriptures. We just trying to get to the bottom of everything. So for those who are scared that we're about to get rid of the Bible, we ain't doing that. We're just trying to find the most ancient scriptures with the most truth in it that have not been tainted, right? So that's what we're doing. Don't freak out on me. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. We're in the process. We in the journey, right? We headed to the destination. This is the process of uncovering all truth. So don't freak out. Don't freak out. Stay in class. All right. So with that being said, I love y'all, beautiful people. And I will see y'all back here tomorrow morning, 7:30 though. 15 minutes later, because it's Saturday. On the weekend, 7:30 if we're not observing the Sabbath on the weekend, right? So 7:30 tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace. All right, y'all.